I'd like you to meet my soul. I've invited her to join us. She's been patiently standing on this threshold, waiting outside this door for me to open it. But before I do, I need to give you fair warning. She's totally out of my control. In fact, once I open that door, there are no limits to what any of us are capable of creating, and it is quite possible we will make all our dreams come true. Some of you might prefer the word muse or the word inspiration instead of soul. My name, Alma, means soul in Spanish, so I like that it serves to remind me of that inner creative voice within me. I'm going to give you a little history about her. 3 summers ago, I almost missed her in Pisa on a 7-week dream trip my family took through Italy and Spain. Thank goodness she knows me and my love of brilliant color. She always knows how to get my attention. I snapped the photo of her quickly in her glorious pink sari, and I imagined all the artwork she would star in. I thought, I'll even name a series after her, and the name Maya bubbled up from that numinous creative stream we all have access to, the one Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Then the unexpected happened. She turned slightly, and time stood still. She moved me, the way a sunset or a beautiful flower does, but even more profoundly. Her smooth, flawless skin was amazing. The calm, deliberate way she moved her head to take everything in made me want to follow her every move. I wondered in that moment if we were taking the view in the same way, watching children running around, bumping into everybody on the lawn, seeing the kiosks teeming with people buying anything with the leaning tower on it, from ashtrays to leather jackets. I wondered if we were watching all the silly photos being taken of people pretending to hold the tower up, like my daughter, while this funny little structure tried to keep the whole thing dignified as it sank sideways. In my stillness, as I watched her, completely inspired, I asked Maya quietly, "Are we perceiving all of this in the same way?" My left ear tingled. The only way I can describe it is the answer came from a place within and without. Inspiration was speaking to me. "Yes," she said. "In this moment, yes." I felt like I was in a trance as a scene shimmered before me. "What will you do with this one life of ours?" the whispers continued. I felt transparent as she unveiled the filter of my fears I've carried around like a comfy old sweater my whole life, and I felt very responsible to speak my truth. Suddenly, my husband yelled to me that he had a taxi. It was time to go. We had a train to catch. I panicked. "Wait," I yelled. I wanted her to tell me the answer, to give me insight to the right path to take, but I was being pulled in 2 directions. She helped me see I've always relied on something outside of me to guide my decisions. What's best for someone else? What will they think if I do it this way? What's going to sell? My family needed me to go, and I went. The train became a metaphor in an itinerary that was taking me further away from what mattered. As we made our way back to the hotel, my thoughts ran like a stampede. They said, "You're nuts. That woman never actually said anything to you. It's all in your head. She was just a tourist looking at the tower. There's no connection, and she is certainly not your soul. Nobody is going to understand what you're talking about. It's not rational." These voices are all very familiar to me, the self-defeating thoughts that always want to ruin my imaginative fun. But I know how to handle them. "Thanks for your input," I said to them. I've believed my thoughts that have told me I'm not very creative or talented time and again, and I've worried that no one will like my art. My thoughts worry so I don't fail, and while I'm grateful for that awareness, I realized there was more that I was being offered by Maya that day. The stream of creativity had grown into a rushing river that was ready to serve up an adventure if I was willing to stay on my own course. Over the next 3 years, she found her way into my artwork. I named this piece Seeing Things Differently because she was making me see things in ways I had not. She went to the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show in Oregon last year in this piece titled Door of Possibilities. As you can see, she wasn't quite on the threshold yet. There were a few more steps to go, but she really got my attention in this piece titled Shambhala. Move forward in time to 2 years ago, a year after my trip to Spain and Italy. I woke up one morning from a dream where I saw myself standing over a lush valley dotted with clusters of flowers and a river that rushed and glittered beneath me. I could tell I was in a wooden temple of some sort, but what I remember most from the dream was the overwhelming feeling of peace I had. There wasn't a single thing I wanted or needed to change or be. There was no drama. I felt completely inspired with a strong knowing I could create anything I wanted, a world of my choosing, confidently. It was as if the world I was looking at was saying, "This is you. I am your mirror." I woke up wanting to have that kind of peace and confidence, and the word that hung there in the space between sleeping and waking was Shambhala. As soon as my coffee was made, I looked it up, and Wikipedia described it as, in Tibetan and Indian Buddhist traditions, it is a mythical kingdom hidden in Inner Asia. It gradually came to be known as a visionary reality, commonly understood as a place of tranquility, peace, and happiness. Naturally, I woke up and became anxious. It's a message that's too ideal, I thought. I'm being given some piece of inspiration that's unattainable. Who could possibly live this way? Without a shred of doubt? Not possible. But I made the piece anyway because I'm well aware of how inspiration comes, or doesn't, if I don't create what it sends me. I said, "Thank you," and learned soon after that the name I'd given my muse, Maya, is the Hindu triple goddess who represents illusion. I find world mythology fascinating. In the Hindu tradition, Maya is centered on the fact that we do not experience the environment itself, but rather a projection of it, created by our mind, our feelings, and our intentions. I thought, if it is true that the world is a projection of my inner reality and Shambhala is possible, I would enlist Maya to show me how to reflect my vision. This is my story. There's always a story, isn't there? What we are telling ourselves all the time about our creations, our creativity, what we are capable of creating. There is a process unfolding continually, what we believe we can or can't do. It took me a long time to see that I am creating all the time, not just at the sewing machine, canvas, or with writing. We are in a state of creativity no matter what we are doing. I am using Maya to help me illustrate how we are drawn in by something. Maybe an idea, the layers or colors of flower petals, a quilt pattern, whatever it is. Something urges us to explore it further, to make something of it, to interpret it in our own way. This is what intrigues me, the impulse behind that initial gasp when beauty gets our attention, when something causes us to want something deeply or to make something new. I want to know that voice that is both silent and has something to say, because my life is rich with inspiration when I'm in tune and listening to that call. Maya became my inspiration and my appreciation of her. This is what I've come to in regards to creativity and the inspiration process. Maya's waiting at the door. It's time to open it and let the muse in. Are you ready? Well, this is unexpected. A door behind a door. Mysterious. But you know what I love? Inspired graffiti from Barcelona, and the way this metal door jumped out at me when I was looking for an image for the big reveal behind Maya's door. My soul obviously has something to say about love. I'm going to share a morning I loved recently as I began to get a little nervous about what I would say in this presentation. I woke up and immediately I set an intention. I am a conduit for creativity for myself and others, I said out loud. I got up from my bed, felt the wood floor beneath my feet, listened to my right ankle crack as I stretched upward. I moved to the kitchen, paying attention to my movements as I got the coffee ready. I was present to the water filling the pot. I stopped to smell the French roast coffee that I love, and I admired these angel trumpet vine flowers outside my kitchen window that I also love. I turned on the computer while the coffee brewed, and I went to my photo files. The word detritus came to me, which prompted me to find some images I had of the forest where I lived in Oregon. This was the first image that drew me in. My first thought was, okay, decomposing stump. That's not too inspiring. Always the negative voice first. I smiled and kept that image open on my desktop. I listened to the beep, beep, beep of my coffee and got up to pour myself a cup, adding copious amounts of agave and heavy whipping cream because that's how I love it. I then thought of Maya, and as I walked back to my computer, the negative voice said, "But you've already used her a lot. They're going to get tired of her." But I dragged her image anyway next to the stump. I sat there for a while, asking myself this question, the one that signals to my soul that I'm doing my best to defer to her. What wants? I'd heard the cooing of a dove intermittently throughout the morning, a sound I also love, but now it sounded louder. I was paying attention, so I surfed the internet for a copyright-free image of a dove. Maybe it was its wings or having Maya on my mind, but I was thinking expansively and didn't quite know how an old stump would play into that feeling. But I let my imagination wander, and in about 30 minutes, this digital artwork is what came to be. And I loved it because it told me a hopeful story about my being able to see beauty in the midst of decay. My soul is expanding my horizons, like to the edge of the universe, or what is possible. I had the answer to the question that had nagged at me since Pisa. What will you create with this one life we have? I was ready to finally say it and accept the responsibility. I said it out loud. I will create anything I desire. Everything we love, if we pay attention to it, acknowledge and say yes to it, will give much more in return. We know this with the people we love, but it is true with inspiration as well, with the things and images we love, and I believe with the life we love too. 11 years ago, before art came into my life, we left our friends and family in California for a new life in Oregon. For 2 years, I fought depression, even though my life on the outside looked wonderful. It painted a beautiful picture, a supportive and loving husband, 2 beautiful and healthy children, friends to have fun with, but something was missing. In fact, in all my conversations, something always seemed to be missing for me. If my friends complimented me on my outfit or the decor of my house, I deflected the attention away and I would point out what was wrong. I ran my health into the ground, literally, with marathons, long and frequent triathlons that were never fast enough, and my drive to have the perfect garden, which is a black hole on 5 acres, an immaculate house, well-behaved and engaged children with a full schedule, all wore me down. My back went out and my complaining only grew, becoming sweeping statements about how my life wasn't measuring up. Thank Goddess for breakdowns and breakthroughs, for debilitating back issues that doctors could not help me fix that led me to acupuncture, yoga, and meditating. I am grateful for my partner's compassion and patience. Look at what is good in your life, he kept saying to me. You have this idea that you're bad, that you don't deserve the goodness in your life. While my acupuncturist, a goddess in my opinion, kept saying, be the best mother you can be to yourself. It has taken me many years to lift the shame I felt for just being me. But as I began to give myself permission to enjoy and be grateful for my life, it began to feel fuller. Then a miracle happened. I woke up early one morning 9 years ago, turned the TV on, and as I sat transfixed watching Jane Sassman putting together her iris quilt on the show Simply Quilts, I fell in love with her process and the show, and so I continue to get up every morning at 5 a.m. to watch it. I watched for 2 months before I got the courage to walk into Joann's to buy my first fabrics. I had no idea a bolt even needed to be cut. I came home with my handful of fabrics, embroidery floss, and large-eyed needles, and racked my brain for something to draw. The last thing I remembered having drawn was a landscape I drew over and over again as a child, of mountains, trees, sometimes a lake, and sometimes with a river. The only reason this is notable is that I was born in San Francisco and I'd only lived in urban areas growing up. So I sketched the landscape and made this first quilt. I made it in hiding, in my room, alone when no one was home. As I was making it, I got up to go to the bathroom, and I became very emotional when I realized that the view I'd made as a child was the view outside my window in Bend, Oregon. I couldn't help but feel that my child self somehow knew I'd find my creative voice there. I soon discovered I loved unlikely elements in my quilts, like shisha mirrors, copper, and things like Tyvek sewn with metallic thread and then melted. I enjoyed my first public success when I sold my first quilt at the Sisters Quilt Show. I apologize for the poor quality of the image. It was taken before I had a digital camera. I learned creativity came with cycles of highs and lows, but I did my best to keep winter's darkness from becoming my own like I had in the past. Chicken Pot Party was inspired by a pile of vegetables waiting to go in a pot on a moody and dark afternoon. I believe my soul decided about then that I was ready to have my concept of love stretch to include the dark shadows of my mind, how I've always been very hard on myself. I participated in my first art festival, and to be clever, I designed a sandwich board sign and used fabric letters to spell Alma Art. This is the only image I have of it. I was excited to hear 3 women approaching who were speaking in Spanish, and I was just about to ask them where they were from when the first lady said to her friends, "I don't like anything I see here. The only thing I like is this," and she pointed to my sandwich board. I waited until they left to have my little breakdown over my first critique. For 5 days I allowed myself to fume, to be mad, sad, and woe is me. I not only agreed with her comment, but I added more to it. Out loud I said to my husband, "She's right. I'm not any good at this. Why do I even bother? I am not an artist. I don't even have a degree. I'm a fake. By day 5, he quietly got up from the chair and said, "You're right," and he walked out of the room. This did not go over well. I stormed after him. "What do you mean?" I yelled. Long story short, he said a similar thing he'd said before. "You're not appreciating any of this. Do you know how lucky you are to be able to make art?" And once that truth sunk in, the sandwich board spoke and said, "I am pretty cool." Telemadeira Fusion was born. It brings two words, tela meaning fabric and madeira meaning wood, to create mixed media artwork. It took me a few months to develop the process with lots of trial and error. At first I had a vision to create mirrors with this technique, so these were a few of my first pieces. These led to more collage techniques. It was a daily effort for me to keep the critical voice in my head away from believing in my artwork. It said, "It's not real art. It's not fine art. You are not a painter." I noticed that when I believed these thoughts, I also procrastinated making art, and I would then get irritated with myself for not being more creative and for wasting time. At the same time, the universe continued to tempt me with more possibilities. Things I wanted: a gallery, a bigger art show. I wanted to make and sell bigger artwork. I began to see a correlation between manifesting my desires and not believing my negative thoughts. One of the hardest things for me to do was to love what I was making. Then my work was accepted at the Celebration of Craftswomen, a juried show here in San Francisco. My thoughts got carried away, and my intention along with them. It's a big show, I thought self-importantly. I can make a lot of money. So I made several pieces I thought would sell. Ironically, they had feng shui motifs. In fact, I made a lot of artwork, stayed up late many nights, fretted and worried, oozed stress on everyone around me, and was exhausted and sick again by the time I went to the show. I sold one piece, Journey Home, the only one I took with me that I'd made months earlier. I sold it for $600, the exact fee I paid to get into the show. I learned my soul has an ironic side to her. She was telling me the only journey I should focus on was the one towards her, my interior creative life, where I am always home, and not making art to satisfy some idea of what others will like. Just to make sure I got the point, she gave me a few more opportunities to learn. Perhaps if I had made all those feng shui pieces in the name of beauty, another one of my soul's loves, she would have worked with me. But I didn't. I made them out of fear, that I wouldn't have enough art, that no one would like my personal pieces, that I needed to make money because I didn't have enough, which in my life has to do with not feeling I am enough. I also stressed myself out, created drama, which always closes the door. My soul was saying, make art out of love for yourself. What brings you joy? Let's open that door now. Oh good, the door is becoming transparent. This piece was commissioned. Commissions are tricky to navigate for me because my first feeling is always insecurity, and then I have to honestly ask myself if the project will bring me joy. But Bill, my client, made this easy. He asked me to meet him at about 6 in the morning so I could see what he loved to see every morning. He told me it got his day started off right. He went to his office door that was made of glass, set on a hill overlooking the river. Within 5 minutes, a large flock of ducks flew overhead, and he had me peek outside as I watched them land at the base of the hill, and I saw hundreds of ducks waddle up the grass right toward us. A male and female stood on the other side and waited for Bill to open the door so he could feed them. I loved the moment, and I was grateful he'd shared something he loved with me that inspired me. Inspiration is everywhere, isn't it? A leaf changing with the season, the people we love, or flowers in a garden. Beauty can rush into a life and take it over when we see that our allurements and our preferences are there beckoning to us to interpret them in our own unique way. Loving my creativity, appreciating it, and saying yes to it taught me this. Inspiration is everywhere, but it begins in me. 5 years ago, I woke up from a dream where a friend was insisting I climb a steep hill to look at a tree she said was beautiful. In the dream, I was annoyed by her enthusiasm. She kept repeating, "I can hardly wait for you to see it. You're going to love it." After what seemed like a long time in the dream, we finally got to the tree, which looked like a dying Dr. Seuss tree with brittle and dry branches. She kept pointing to it, saying, "Don't you love it?" I woke up very unsettled, and for several days I was in a funk, unmotivated to do much of anything. Another friend and I had dyed fabrics several months before, and they were on my mind as I kept procrastinating going into the studio. Finally, I walked in, telling myself I was just going to straighten up, my way of breaking the force field that was keeping me out. As soon as I walked in, a reddish pink fabric caught my eye, and I went straight to the sewing machine because I saw the faint outline of a figure, so I outlined it. The quilt top came together quickly as I saw her arm become the branch of a tree. The title came to me immediately, Reclaiming Yin, and I saw for the first time that something inside me was informing my creativity and it was coming through in my dreams. The tree developed to include the women of my past, in the faces and the roots, women who did not have the same opportunities I have had to express myself and use my voice. You can also see the child I was that loved to swing from a tire swing from an oak tree at ages when I truly believed I could do and be anything I wanted. I learned there was a secret garden within me, telling a story that had everything to do with accepting who I was, everything that was good and everything else too, like my driven, perfectionist, competitive, and insecure ways of being. I felt something guiding me to recover what had always been mine, worthiness, that what I have to express matters. I felt my soul looking for me, and I too wanted to find her, to really know what we are capable of together. I learned quickly, however, her agenda and my agenda were a little different, and hers are directly linked to the power of the universe. 4 years ago, Cloth Paper Scissors asked me if I would like to be interviewed for their magazine. For 24 hours, I was elated, daydreaming about how my artwork was going to be known on a broader scale. Then they called to tell me they had a change of plans. They asked, would I be interested in sharing my telemadeira fusion process instead? This was very stressful, or rather, I created stress for myself about this. There were two energies pulling at me. One loud voice said, if I share it, then everyone will be able to do it, and it won't be unique, and galleries may not want it anymore. The other voice was quieter, barely there. It said, share. I am abundant. I laid down on the cold floor of my studio for several minutes trying to quiet my thoughts, but they only got more intense. I focused on my heart. I imagined saying no to thank you to the magazine, and I felt my chest tighten. I then imagined saying yes, and my breathing seemed to calm. I opened my eyes, and a book by artist Cheryl Kahn jumped out at me from my bookshelf. I called her immediately, and she validated my feelings. She said I would not regret sharing. Several serendipitous events followed the article that led to my writing a book about the telemadeira fusion process, and it continues to open many doors, like teaching. I have met hundreds of amazing people who inspire me in classes, who I feel connected to, and who I am very grateful to know. Creativity has its own force and its own plan that is linked to universal values across all cultures, beginning with love and including truth, beauty, and courage. I'm grateful creativity has held me like a mother does her child, nurturing and supporting this short life journey, giving it meaning and purpose. All of our preferences are meant to inform us. We each have different desires and interests that the universe is generously showing us at all times. It is our choice to notice, and if we add enthusiasm, then, like magic, the universe responds with more. Ask yourself all the time, what do I love? What excites me? What inspires me? Be fascinated with yourself. Follow your allurements like a sleuth, and you will create the unexpected. When we turn our attention to our bliss, we enter into a creative dance with the universe itself. These words by Joseph Campbell excite me. I wanted to know what he meant by them exactly, so I followed them like breadcrumbs on a trail towards something more. Joseph Campbell studied mythologies of the world, was a professor at Sarah Lawrence College, and he shared his insights in many books, including The Power of Myth and The Hero's Journey. Historically, myths are similar across cultures, telling stories of the human condition, including our creative expression. Joseph Campbell believed, like psychoanalyst Carl Jung, that these stories are a product of the collective unconscious. I like to think of the collective unconscious like a repository for humanity's experiences that we experience as symbols, in dreams, as energies called archetypes, and in the images and ideas we get as inspiration. The collective unconscious is impersonal and is always on, like a river that is always flowing beneath us, but we can control the flow of inspiration. We can look to mythology, its heroes and symbols, and invite them in and ask for their help. For example, I asked the muses to help me with the homework assignment of a restaurant homepage for a Photoshop class I took, and before I could think of anything, the muses took center stage on a mound of pasta. They love attention. I find the deeper my appreciation for my interests, the more playful life becomes. We can look to mythology for gods and goddesses that we resonate with, like I did with Maya earlier, and ask that they help build in ourselves attributes we see in them. As I've realized how much wisdom my soul has that I can benefit from, I can ask Athena, goddess of wisdom, to help me gain more. Her symbol is the owl. I can look to the myths of my Peruvian culture and ask Viracocha, god of the sun, to help me discover new heights, like combining my poetry with my visual art. The plume disguised. The one who creates renders wings. Viracocha's promise takes flight. Wisdom is here for the crossing. Beauty's window wide. An old stone loosens. A miracle will rise. I have always loved to write, but I have censored it for a big part of my life out of doubt and because I am a perfectionist. If I have read something amazing by someone, I have compared my writing unfavorably and I've made many excuses that I don't have time. Essentially, I was not allowing an energy that was offering itself to me, and I created a dam. A little at a time, however, I practiced following my bliss, which I came to find out is not necessarily comfortable. In fact, there were days of sitting in a chair to write that were excruciating when I thought every word I wrote was awful. But art has taught me about process, that creativity is a journey and not a destination. Here's an example of process. When I was a little girl, when it rained, I loved sitting on the carpet of my parents' bedroom to watch the raindrops slide down the glass of their large picture windows. I would put my finger on a drop and follow it down its path to the next drop, until that one got heavy and continued down. I would look beyond the glass at a large yard filled with trees, including my tire swing, and there would be no regret or sadness about being inside. I just enjoyed being. When I wrote my book Collage Fusion, I had to come up with 45 projects, and in doing so, I revisited happy memories like this one I just described, getting into that same frame of mind of just being, and the ideas came without effort. The idea for I Am the Drop and the Ocean came to me as I thought about my childhood memory weaving itself as a metaphor for our individual lives being small, yet so important to the whole history of the world. Then, a year ago, I sat in the car while it rained, waiting for my daughter's basketball practice to end, with some doubt as to whether my husband and I had made the right decision to move from Oregon, where we lived for 9 years, back to California, where we moved to 2 years ago. It had been a challenging year for all of us, and I was still feeling all the transition pains, and I had not felt connected to that river of creativity in some time. I was reading The Power of Myth in the car, and was moved by these words by the Navajo that Joseph Campbell was discussing. Oh, beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty to the left of me, beauty to the right of me, beauty above me and beauty below me. I'm on the pollen path. It describes the Navajo's belief that the spirit directs the human journey. I started crying at the simple gift and truth in front of me that I had forgotten and remembered so many different times on my artistic journey. I can see beauty surrounding me, and I can wrap her like a blanket to heal me too. I then watched the raindrops with devotion. Follow your bliss, I heard Joseph Campbell in my ear, and these were the words that came quickly in the moments that followed, and I wrote them on the back of a receipt. Halo. The sky broke open, washed me clean of many things. Soft steam lingers on my skin. A halo, it seems, growing more than belongings, bigger than thoughts, always enough, and the earth hasn't stopped. In fact, no one has noticed the eternalness soaking everywhere through and through this brief life. Wrap the halo close. Hold tight. For me, following my bliss has also meant giving myself permission to do things while being indifferent to the good or bad opinion of others, like using my naked self in my artwork. It is a symbol for staying open to the unknown, the uncharted depths that I have yet to plumb within me. The withering, dying tree of my dream is thriving and healing still on various levels. The women of my past were abused emotionally and physically, and I've carried guilt about the blessed life I have. I learned that I was holding myself back from experiencing full joy out of fear that something might be taken away, like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because in my family, I saw that when a woman was happy, she was put down. I grew up around women who held back the best parts of themselves out of fear of getting hurt, and I heard constant but justifiable excuses for not trying things. But here's the thing. The soul refuses to give up on the sacred space we embody. I've learned she's in every put-down I've told myself, embedded in my regret and insecurity, and these too have been the means she's used to get my attention. When I told myself I couldn't afford the Photoshop class I wanted to take, she kept pressing it upon my brain until I finally shelled out the few $100s to do it. It's like she's saying, invest in me. How else are we going to get from here to there to enjoy the good view on this journey we're taking together? I wish I could tell you what's next, but it seems she likes to keep me on an as need-to-know basis. We are having a love affair with San Francisco, and if I were a house, I'd definitely be a painted lady. Be the light, she says. Inspire others. Hopefully I have done that, but it reminds me to mention this. I've been on a quest for purpose and meaning, especially the last 5 years since I turned 40, to feel like I'm making a contribution to others while doing what I love. As I made this piece, Abundance, during my Reclaiming Yin series, I had a hard time with the position of the little girl's head looking at the moon while this big fish was on the line below. I kept moving her head down when I was making it, but the piece kind of insisted that it stay like this. Artwork is always speaking, while it is being made, and sometimes even years after it is finished. I slowly came to realize that I've spent much time wishing on stars to be and do things that were not in keeping with who I am. I've compared myself to many people, looking at the lives of others, believing theirs were better, their art or creativity. But the truth is, abundance has always been on my line, and sharing who I am, like that first quilt I made, is scary. Dolly Parton said, "Figure out who you are and do it on purpose." Who am I when I peel the layers of limited beliefs and shed them like a snake does its skin? Who am I when I trust the creative goddess alive in me? The answer is the same for all of us. We are powerful creators. That door has always been open. Enter into it, not once, but for all. For each of our moments are keys. Free will is an open door to an unseen miracle and a perpetual here and now. Dissolve each thought to soul see. These eyes know the world within writes the world without, a personal love letter or not. The bravest will teach and learn from the front line of suffering, which means all of us gain everything from an open heart, unlocking the veil, not once, but for all who enter. Having entered my inner castle, it has become clear. I create for my soul.